John Rick S. Cristino, and I'm from the Royals, and my preaching is entitled, Here Am I, Sent. First of all, let us pray. Father, we thank you for this day, for this wonderful day that you've given to us. May you give me the wisdom that I need to impart to your children, what you want me to impart to them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So God has always sent men to do his work here on earth. God sent 3 men to do his will. And God called them and sent them on missions. So their reaction to God's call can be applied when God calls us. So who were the 3 men? So the first one is Jonah. Jonah chapter 1 says, Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come before me. So God wanted Jonah to go to Nineveh, because God saw the wickedness of the people. Now, Jonah, what he did, it says here on verse 3, But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa. And he found a ship going to Tarshish. So what he tried to do is he tried to run out of God's calling. So, his reaction wasn't good at all. So I think we all know the story of Jonah. So God sent a big fish, and then he was swallowed. Then he repented, and then he did God's will. So as you can see here, even though we try to run from God's call, there will be a way. God will make a way for his will to be done. Sometimes we are like Jonah. We're running away from obligations, believing that we have good reasons which set us apart from our responsibility. And then the next person is Moses. Now it says here on Exodus chapter 3, verse 4, And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush, and said, Moses, Moses. He said, Here am I. So when God called Moses, he said, Here am I. And then God said unto Moses, Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my children, the people of Israel, out of Egypt. So God wanted Moses to be the deliverer of the Israelites, because he saw how cruel the Egyptians were to the Israelites. So when he said that to Moses, Moses' reaction was, Who am I? You want me to be the deliverer of the Israelites? So he had a lot of reasons, he had a lot of questions. What am I going to do? What if, what if, what if? He said on chapter 4, But behold, they will not believe in me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, The Lord had not appeared unto me. And he said on verse 10, O Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech, and of a slow tongue. So he did not believe in himself. But Moses saw the need of the people. He just couldn't see himself being used by God to meet the need. And then on verse 13 he said, O my Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. So he said on verse 13, Lord, send other people instead. I'm not worthy. And then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. So in Exodus, God showed his amazing works, and Moses obeyed God. So sometimes, we are like Moses. Sometimes we think that there's always someone better than us who can do the obligations that was set before us. we think that we are not worthy. And then the last person is Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8. It says here, "Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, Here am I, send me." So Isaiah's initial response was, when God asked, "Whom will I send?" he said, "Here am I, Lord, send me." So he wanted God to send him. And I think that there were three reasons why this was Isaiah's initial response. So the first one is he saw the majesty and the glory of God. It says on verses 1 to 4, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood, and seraphims each had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. The second one is that he saw the sinfulness of men. On verse 5, then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. And the last one is he saw the forgiveness of God. On verse 7, and he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this hath touched my lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin is purged. So Isaiah had an eagerness in serving the Lord. He was prepared, he was ready. So this should be the attitude of God's children today. When was the last time that you had so much eagerness in serving the Lord? So before I end this message, I want to leave a question. How do we respond when we know that God has called us to action? Do we respond worthily, or are we a disappointment to our God? Do we respond like Jonah, whom God called and ran away? Or like Moses, whom God called and said, Send other people instead? Or like Isaiah, whom God called and said, Here am I, send me. Brothers and sisters, let us be ready. Let us be prepared for God's call. Let us be like Isaiah.